Hi there, Elise Dewsberry here, starting the second year of my vlog about how to get no feedback from Elise. I'm going to continue. When I finished my 12th vlog last month, I talked about how to deal with feedback. You know, I admitted to the fact that no matter how much you pay attention to these rules, you're still going to get feedback, whether from me or from other people. People are always going to have opinions. So I talked about how to deal with that feedback. In this vlog, I'm going to continue with that topic a little bit, and I'm going to talk in particular about what happens when in feedback someone asks a question. There's something that they don't understand about a moment in your show, about something a character does or something that's happening, or just any question that they ask. I think in general, you can say that there are 3 different ways that you can deal with a question that comes up during feedback. I have my preference for what I think is the best way to deal with the question. These are all ways to deal with it, so you can choose any one of them. I just think that the one I'm going to save to the last is a slightly better choice, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't choose one of the other 2. So perhaps the simplest way to deal with a question is to answer it. And what that means is that in your script, if you reach a moment where, you know, someone asks the question, well, how come he's coming into the room with a tennis racket? I don't understand that. And so you go directly to that moment in the script and you have your character enter carrying a tennis racket, and he says, "Hi there, my name's Joe and I just won the tennis championships," or "I've been playing tennis," or he says something to make it clear to us. That's not the best example in the world because presumably we would know that's why he's carrying a tennis racket. But the point being, you answer the question by going to the place where the question arose in your script and adding in some explanation that will answer the question. That will get the job done. I think that's the most awkward way to do it because what it involves is explanation, exposition, just plain old explaining, which is not dramatic and not terribly interesting for your audience. You have to give them backstory. You have to explain something to them. The playwright really shows in that moment because everybody knows, oh, you're just telling me this because this is information I need to know. So although you can do it that way, that is the risk. The risk is that it will be unwieldy and not the most elegant solution. So another solution when a question comes up is to make the question go away. Now that's actually is I think the best way to do it. I'm going to talk. I said I was going to save it till last, and now I'm not because the last one is a different approach. But anyway, to make the question go away, what you do is you look around your script and try to find a way to have the question not come up in the first place. Answer it earlier, you know, give us some information earlier in a more elegant way so that when this other moment comes up, we won't have this question anymore. This is particularly useful when questions come up very late and you're trying to wrap everything up and you want to do it quickly and you don't want to have to spend a lot of time explaining things. It can be really useful to go much earlier in the piece and see where can you plant some seeds, where can you plant some little bits of information that won't feel like heavy-duty exposition and boring explanations, but will give us just enough information so that when the critical moment arrives, we won't ask that question. So we won't need an answer because we'll already have all the information that we need. So I think that's a more elegant way to deal with it. Try to figure out how can you front load clues and bits and pieces of information so that when that critical moment comes up, no one's going to ask that question anymore. So making the question go away. Now, the third one is I call acknowledging the question. And this is perfectly valid. It tends to sometimes be a little bit more of a comic approach to answering a question, so it depends on the nature of your show, but it can certainly work especially well in a comedy. So the way this works is that if someone on your stage, some character on your stage, acknowledges the question or asks the same question that your audience is having at that moment, in some ways it doesn't matter in the slightest what the answer is, because we as an audience are so somehow subdued by the fact that, yeah, I was wondering that too. We don't really care what the answer is. We just like to know that somebody noticed that there was a question to be asked. So let me give you a sort of an example of that. So, you know, a character leaves at one point in the show and he exits stage right, and then a couple of scenes later he leaves through the front door. A couple of scenes later he comes out of a closet, you know, unexpectedly in an important moment where you want him to just appear from the closet. So as an audience member, I'm going to be thinking, wait a minute, I saw him leave through the front door a little while ago. What the heck is he doing coming out of the closet? That doesn't make any sense to me. So if when he comes out of the closet, someone on stage, another character goes, "Good heavens, Joe, didn't you leave by the front door a minute ago?" That's called acknowledging the question. So now someone on stage has asked the very question that was in my mind at that moment. Immediately, as an audience member, I calm down and I go, "Yeah, I was wondering that too." Now, Joe's answer could be, "Well, it's a really long explanation. I don't have time for that now." And that won't matter. He could say, I just dug a tunnel under the house. He could say, that's none of your business. It really doesn't matter what Joe's answer is because the question was asked. And that's all it takes to calm me down. The answer that Joe gives, that's why I'm saying it can be comic, because if he really avoids it or gives a silly answer or something like that, we can find it comic. And if it's a serious moment, that might not fly if it isn't answered more honestly. So just for a second, before I wrap up, let me take that same example and look at other ways to do it. So let's say that let's say Joe appears out of the closet and he bursts out of the closet and you decided that you're going to answer the question in the moment. So he bursts out of the closet going, "I know I left out of the door the last time you saw me, but what you didn't know was that I dug a tunnel under the house that opened up in this closet so that I was able to come out now." So you can see that that can be very inelegant. It certainly explains why he's coming out of the closet instead of back in the front door, but it really is bulky and awkward and inelegant in that moment for him to have to explain it to me. To make the question go away, you could let us know much earlier in the piece that there's a tunnel, and so we know, maybe it's not foreground in our minds, but we do know that, and maybe someone's even used it before. We've seen someone come in and out that way, so we know that people can get around the back of the house and in through this tunnel. And then when Joe pops out of it, we're going to go, "Oh yeah, that's right. There's a tunnel. He came the other way." So we don't even ask the question. And then the third one, of course, for more comedic value, would be he pops out at the door and somebody says, "Joe, I thought you just went out the front door. How did you come in through the closet?" And he'd say, "I'll have to tell you later. We're busy now," or whatever he says. Doesn't matter. You don't have to deal with it now. So those are the three. Those are not necessarily the greatest examples in the world, but they illustrate the point that when someone has a question that comes up, or maybe someone on the team, but an audience member says, "I don't understand this moment. I don't understand why this is happening." Those are basically your three choices: answer the question, make the question go away, or acknowledge the question. That's the way. Even if you don't agree with the feedback, your audience member had a question. So it's important to you, even if you think they shouldn't have had that question and you don't understand why they had that question, it really behooves you to look at your piece and say, is there a way, particularly in that case, can I just make that question go away? Because my audience should not be having this question at this moment. So how come I haven't got them set up properly? So answer the question, make the question go away, or acknowledge the question. More about how to deal with feedback. And I'll see you next week to talk some more about some other elements that might come up during feedback sessions. So thanks, and toodaloo.